Morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to the August 3rd meeting of the Midland Development Corporation. For the public that's watching online, if you wish to comment on any item, please use the raise your hand button on Zoom. At that point, an MDC staff member will enable you to turn on your camera and unmute your microphone. Members of the public cannot comment via Zoom with their camera off and without identifying themselves. First agenda item is a motion approving the minutes of the July 6, 2026 meeting of the Midland Development Corporation. Is there any public comment?
No needs.
Doesn't look like that. Any discussion from the board? If not, I'd call for a motion to approve the minutes. Mr. West and Mr. Donnelly. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next up, a motion approving the minutes of the July 20th, 2026 meeting of the Midland Development Corporation. Call for public comment. Doesn't look like there's any. Any discussion from the board? If not, I'll call for a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Brown, Mr. Bayhill. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Next up, we have a presentation from the Texas A&M Bush School of Government and Public Service on an economic development research plan briefing for Midland.
I have to start with howdy.
Howdy.
My name is Derek Farrell. I am a professor of practice and I hope the Randy Sims recognize that name. The Sims family is very important to us. And Randy lives here. My chair is named after his father, who was a longtime Brazos County judge. But I get to serve as the director of the city county governance program, Texas A&M. And as a result, I've spent the last 8 months really further back, beginning in October, getting to meet with some of you and some other folks here, preparing for this presentation today, preparing for the project students will do. We want to make sure we thank you as our clients. We want to make sure we thank particularly Tim and Amy Leach. They are friends of the Bush School that have made so much of this possible and they built a great relationship between the Bush School and Midland. We also want to thank several folks at the city, the Department of Strategic Partnership, Midland ISD, the Workforce Solutions, several other organizations in town that offered insights to our team members. And we'd like to thank, importantly, this group of students. The MPSA program that they're a part of stands for Executive Master of Public Service Administration. Unlike the traditional students that sit in classrooms with me during the year, these students are all working. So if on Zoom you see somebody that looks like they might be hiding in a janitor's closet today, they are at work. But a few of them have been able to make the trip here, and I'm gonna let them turn it over to you. But I need you to know that every one of these students over the last 8 months has either experienced a promotion, a life event of some kind, all the normal stresses and things of daily life, and then continued with this project. And so their commitments, their routine meetings every week, their digging into research, it's all produced for you, I think, an incredible result that I'm grateful to them for producing and grateful to you for giving us the opportunity. So with that, I'll turn it over to Gabriel Ortiz.
Thanks, Professor. Well, howdy. My name is Gabriel Ortiz, and I serve as the team leader for this capstone project. On behalf of our entire cohort from the Bush School of Government and Public Service at Texas A&M University, we'd like to thank the Midland Development Corporation for the opportunity to present our work today. What you're about to see is the product of 2 full semesters, 25 weeks of rigorous academic research by 10 dedicated professionals. Think of today's presentation as more of an executive summary or the bluff, the bottom line. So to frame the challenge, we all know that Midland is one of the most economically productive cities in the state of Texas. So when oil prices are up, Midland is thriving as a community. When they fall, the community absorbs those consequences in jobs and housing and quality of life. So the goal of this project is not to move Midland away from energy. That's not reasonable. The goal is to build durable systems around Midland's energy foundation. Systems that stabilize the community and create resilience beyond commodity cycles. And that is what we mean by building resilience beyond good. Our research identified 3 foundational areas where targeted investment can make the greatest impact. And that's in the areas of workforce development, housing, and quality of life. Each area was researched and developed by a dedicated team within our cohort. And due to time constraints today, we're only going to be focusing our presentation on workforce and quality of life. If you'd like to take a deeper dive into the housing section, you can find a full detailed report. Next slide. Group introduction. So behind this group is a remarkable team, like the professor mentioned, 10 executive leaders bringing diverse backgrounds, real world leadership, and a shared commitment to getting this right. I'm proud to call them my colleagues, and it's been an honor to lead this amazing team. Next slide. So our methodology and sources. When we took on this project, we were intentional about how we built our findings. We didn't want to rely on a single data set or offer one-off opinions. Instead, we combined stakeholder interviews, real-time data, and deep academic research. Everything you're going to hear today is defensible, it's grounded in evidence, and tailored specifically to Midland's actual economic landscape. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Zach, who's going to walk us through our findings on workforce development.
Thanks, Kid. Morning all. I'm gonna take the analog approach. My name is Zach Caldwell, and I have the honor of representing the workforce development team today. Either next slide, please. So one of the most important findings from our research is that Midland does not need to abandon energy to diversify its economy. In fact, the opposite is true. The skills that have made Midland successful in oil and gas are the same skills that position it to compete in emerging industries. When we look at aerospace, defense, advanced manufacturing, logistics, and AI-driven data center operations, we repeatedly see demand for workers with technical troubleshooting skills, industrial maintenance experience, safety training, project management capabilities, and experience working in highly regulated environments. These are competencies that are already present in an equipment-based workforce. Workforce development is therefore Midland's most powerful diversification tool because it builds economic flexibility. Rather than trying to recruit entirely new populations, Midland can help its existing workforce apply transferable skills across multiple industries. The second key point is that talent development starts long before employment. A resilient workforce pipeline begins in the K-12 education. Sustained STEM exposure helps students see pathways into technical careers, whether those careers ultimately lead into energy, aerospace, healthcare, manufacturing, cybersecurity, or other emerging technology sectors. We also found that Midland College already provides a strong foundation. Approximately 70 to 80% of the occupations identified by the Permian Basin Workforce Board are already aligned with Midland College programming. That is a major strategic advantage because the institution is not just starting from scratch. Finally, Midland possesses another underutilized asset, its bilingual workforce. As labor shortages increase across technical industries, expanding participation among bilingual and historically underserved populations offers an opportunity to grow talent without need to import workers from elsewhere. So if workforce development is Midland's strongest diversification lever, the next question becomes, what is the current state of Midland's workforce ecosystem and what are the remaining gaps? Slide, please. Our research showed that Midland's workforce system is actually in a strong position compared to many communities attempting economic diversification. The biggest strength is institutional capacity. As I mentioned earlier, Midland College already demonstrates substantial alignment with the region's targeted occupation list. Programs in healthcare, skilled trades, and applied technologies are well established and directly connected to current employer needs. This matters because workforce systems often fail when educators and industry are disconnected. In Midland, we found evidence that those connections already exist and are strong. However, our review also identified several areas where future labor demand may outpace current training capacity. One gap involves automation and robotics. Across virtually every industry, including energy, employers are increasingly adopting automation technologies. Workers will need skills that go beyond operating equipment to maintaining, programming, and optimizing automated systems. A second gap is renewable and alternative energy systems. Whether Midland expands into solar, battery storage, grid, modernization, or other adjacent sectors, these fields require specialized credentials, not yet represented at the same level as traditional energy training. A third gap is logistics and analytics. Modern supply chains increasingly depend on data analysis, predictive modeling, and operational efficiency tools. These skills are becoming critical across transportation, manufacturing, and distribution sectors. Finally, we identified a growing need for AI workforce training. Artificial intelligence is beginning to affect how organizations recruit, train, certify, and retain workers. Communities that adapt early will have an advantage in attracting future employees. We also heard repeatedly during interviews that access barriers remain a challenge. Childcare constraints, transportation issues, and language accessibility can prevent qualified residents from entering training programs, regardless of how strong those programs may be. What's encouraging is that these gaps are addressable. They don't require rebuilding Midland's workforce system. They do require targeted investments that expand and strengthen what already works. Our recommendations focus on 3 strategic actions designed to strengthen Midland's workforce pipeline while supporting long-term economic diversification. First, align education and market demand. Workforce development is most effective when education providers and employers are continuously communicating and collaborating. This is a team sport. We recommend continued investment in K-12 STEM education, expanded teacher development opportunities, and formal industry advisory councils that bring together educators and employers on a regular basis. These partnerships ensure curriculum stays relevant, training remains connected to labor market needs, and students gain early exposure to career pathways that exist within the region. Secondly, we recommend the expansion of stackable credentials. The labor market is changing too quickly for traditional degree-only approaches to meet all workforce needs. Employers increasingly value workers who can quickly acquire targeted skills and then continue building on those qualifications over time. We recommend short-term credentials and certifications in fields such as automation, cybersecurity, UAV design and operation, renewable energy systems, and other emerging fields. These programs provide flexibility for both workers and employers. We also see a unique opportunity for public-private partnerships that create AI and high-performance computing training academies. These facilities can help position Midland for future investment in data-intensive industries while complementing existing technical strengths. Our third recommendation, finally, is to remove barriers to participation. Workforce development only succeeds when residents can access training opportunities. We recommend partnerships that expand childcare availability, improve outreach to underserved populations, and intentionally engage Midland's bilingual workforce. These steps increase labor force participation and help employers access talent that may be currently overlooked. In closing, for the workforce development team, I would like to add that the central takeaway from this section is that workforce development should be viewed as economic infrastructure. Just as communities invest in roads, utilities, and broadband to support growth, they must also invest in talent systems. A workforce built around transferable skills allows Midland to remain an energy leader while creating pathways into new industries, ultimately making the local economy more resilient to future boom and bust cycles. I would like to step aside for just a second and let my colleagues online at Workforce Development, Matt Hartley, and Paula Coggins add any additional insight they would like to. Matt, I think you're on.
You hear me now?
Yep.
All right, good deal. Not a lot to add, Zach. Fantastic job. One of the exciting things that we looked at when we started this project 25 weeks ago, one of the things we discovered early in our research was kind of the years ongoing discussion between Midland College and other entities to allow drilling on their property. Now, to be clear, we are not standing here saying we're going to take credit for that agreement finally being reached. But not long after we got started, there was an agreement reached, and that presents a tremendous opportunity, we think, to reinvest in some of these programs that Midland College already has in place, perhaps some to address some of the barriers that Zach talked about. Again, workforce development is not a starting from scratch proposition for Midland and the region. There are great things in place already and some tremendous opportunities to continue to strengthen that.
Thank you, Matt.
Okay, this time I'm going to hand off to Daniel Seguin online to discuss quality of life. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Wonderful. Well, howdy. My name is Daniel Seguin, and I am the Executive Director of Community Services for the City of Taylor, Texas. I wish I could join you in person this morning, but I'm really happy to be a part of the presentation virtually and appreciate you having us. So our quality of life team includes Olu Ogantade and Nathan Jones. Nathan sends his regards as a work matter has pulled him away this morning. Over the next few minutes, I'll walk through what we found, and Olu is here to jump in on critical details and help address any questions. The through line for our section is really simple. In a modern economy, quality of life isn't a nice to have. It's a driver of where businesses locate and where skilled workers choose to live. And for a boom and bust region like Midland, it's also a resilience strategy. First, I want to address what is quality of life, because this is really one of the challenges we faced when we began our research. There's a lot of data out there about quality of life and its impacts on economic development. But the trouble is each study uses its own definition for quality of life, and some of those even include housing prices. So to ensure alignment with our economic development focus, we chose to use the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts definition, which includes parks and open space, sports and athletic facilities, entertainment facilities like theaters, music halls, arcades, bowling alleys, and restaurants, convention and tourism related amenities like hotels, water parks, museums, amusement parks, and convention centers. And then public infrastructure tied to community use like trails, sidewalks, and public transit. And finally, recreational facilities. So with that, I'd like to talk about the research. The research is consistent on three main points. Amenity investment tends to raise population, employment, and income at the same time. The amenities attracting talent most are consumer facing, dining, entertainment, recreation, and those same amenities buffer a local economy when the commodity cycles turn. A few numbers that anchor this. First, park and recreation agencies generated about $201 billion in the US in economic activity in 2021. These amenities are an industry. They're not just an expense. 87% of executives are now weighing quality of life features heavily when deciding where to site facilities. Specific industries and workforces weigh quality of life heavier than others, and this may be really important as Midland is working to diversify its economy. So some of those industries that are looking to relocate headquarters, research departments, technology companies, you might include aerospace in that, service companies, and high-skilled, high-educated workers. So recruiting aerospace, defense, and other headquarters-oriented employers really depends on that quality of life investment to make them interested in wanting to come to Midland. Roughly 40% of the faster job growth in talent-rich cities traces back to quality of life. So what does that really mean? If you're looking at a city that's high growth, that's bringing a lot of industry, 40% of that growth can be attributed to quality of life. So really the headline for Midland is this: livability must shift from a secondary concern to a primary economic driver. So how does Midland actually stack up? Let's jump to the next slide, please. When we started on this research, we asked the Midland Development Corporation who Midland's competitors are for their targeted industries. So the selected cities were Brownsville, Texas, and Huntsville, Alabama. These are very different cities. They're both a little bit larger than Midland, but they both bring some unique elements that are important as we look at what Midland has and what it could have in the future that would help drive economic growth and diversification. When we compared the quality of life amenities in the three cities, we found that Midland is very competitive, but is uneven. And there's some specific areas where Midland could bring additional investment that may improve quality of life and diversification. On the strength side, Midland is at or above its peer average on recreation and connectivity. So in areas of sports and fields, Midland has 11.5 per 10,000 population against 8 on average. For bike lanes and sidewalks, it's well above peer cities. And for public transit stops, it's nearly double the average. The gaps are pretty clear as well. They cluster in the retail and green infrastructure environment. So with trails, Midland is, we're seeing 0.65 trail miles per 10,000 population versus 8 miles of trails per 10,000 in Huntsville. Again, that's Huntsville, Alabama. For tree canopy, Midland is showing about a 4% coverage according to Texas A&M Forest Service. That compares with 35% coverage in Midland. And for regional context here, we also looked at tree canopy in Odessa, and it looks like, according to Forest Service, again, they are over 10% in tree canopy coverage. And that's really important because the data is showing that tree canopy actually drives people to more often participate in recreation, to get outside and enjoy the recreational amenities that a city has to offer. And of course, it also lowers temperature. It looks like around, on average, 10% lower temperatures in the shade under trees compared with an area with no trees. And finally, sit-down dining and coffee shops. Midland is roughly 1/3 or 33% below their peer averages for how many sit-down dining options and coffee shops that they have. Next slide, please. So that really brings us to our recommendations. The theme here is to leverage our oil and gas revenue and to fund targeted grant-eligible investments exactly where Midland trails its peers. So there's 3 moves that we recommended. And the first one you've already kind of got a start on. The first is to close the retail gap. Commission a retail leakage study and engage a recruitment firm to bring in sit-down dining, cafes, and entertainment. And like I said, you've already gotten started. This was something that we talked with Sarah there at the MDC about, and she engaged and commissioned a retail leakage study. Unfortunately, the results came a little too late for our process to incorporate them into the final report, but I wanted to provide an opportunity if she can jump in for Olu to discuss some of those findings in the leakage report before we move on. She did a dive into those findings. Olu?
One moment while we get her online.
Okay.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, and do you have the ability to turn on a camera?
It doesn't give me that option to turn on my camera.
Okay, go ahead and proceed.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Daniel. Like he introduced me, my name is Olu Oguntade, and I am one of the members of the Quality of Life team. So after our report was finalized, we received a preliminary retail leakage analysis for the city of Midland. This analysis compares what resident could spend locally, so that would be local demand, with what is actually spent locally, and that's local sales. A positive gap or leakage means local demand is going unmet and signals opportunity for new or expanded retail. While this analysis isn't included in our report, it reinforces our recommendations in two ways. The first is that it confirms significant unmet retail demand in categories such as food services and drinking places, also clothing, electronics, and appliances. Notably, the dining and entertainment gaps we identified in our report are just a piece of a much larger retail shortfall spanning multiple categories. Secondly, the report supports commissioning a full ESRI retail marketplace analysis, which will provide audited supply and demand data by the North America Industry Classification System code, and this would help capture the complete retail picture for Midland to help make informed decisions about it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Olu. So the second recommendation we had is to build out trails and canopy. So one of the critical pieces we wanted to point out here is that the city needs updated trails and parks master plans to have eligibility for grants from Texas Parks and Wildlife, from TxDOT, Forest Service, and others. And so the minimum requirement is that the trails and parks plans be updated every 5 years. And so it looks like Midland's Parks Plan is currently 6 years old, and I believe they're possibly pursuing an update to it currently or in the near future, which is great. And its trails plan is 11 years old. So the third recommendation is to pursue public-private partnerships for sports complexes, performing arts centers, and tourism venues. These will help diversify the economy and lift livability at the same time. And while MDC cannot directly invest in quality of life amenities as a Type A corporation, it can support the city through infrastructure investment. Additionally, Type A EDCs can invest in quality of life through a ballot initiative. While it's not very common practice, we wanted to bring it up, and it can provide an opportunity to leverage economic development funds to drive quality of life investments with community support. So the bottom line is we need to start treating quality of life projects as core economic development infrastructure, not secondary spending. And that's a shift that would move Midland from a boom-bust cycle toward a durable, diversified growth. So that's the quality of life section. Before we take any questions, Olu, is there anything I missed or you'd like to expand on?
No, I think you covered it well. Thank you.
Awesome. So with that, we'd be happy to take any questions on the quality of life findings or recommendations, and the rest of the team can weigh in on how it connects to workforce and housing pieces. If you'd like to move to that final slide, that would be great.
There's no questions. We're going to go ahead and close this up. So to wrap things up, everything you've heard today across workforce development and quality of life is actually one unified argument. That Midland's path to long-term resilience runs through treating these as not secondary spending, but as core economic infrastructure. On the workforce side, the technical skills built for the oil patch, such as automation, robotics, logistics, actually transfer directly into aerospace, defense, and AI. Investing in K-12 STEM and stackable credentials keeps talent local and broadens the economic base without walking away from it. On quality of life, parks, dining, and venue spaces are amenities for their own stake. They're actually tools for attracting skilled workers and keeping families here long term. Smart public-private partnerships can turn those amenity gaps into lasting community resilience. So when you pair a future-ready, adaptable workforce with a city that offers community amenities, you build an economy that can thrive well beyond the next building. So we're happy to go deeper on any of these three areas, whether it's the data behind our benchmarking, the specific recommendations, or how these strategies might be sequenced or prioritized. We do have the final report available, and all documents, all of our sources, methodologies, as well as the complete housing section. We are very proud of what this cohort has produced, and we hope it serves as a meaningful contribution to MDC's ongoing economic development strategy. And so with that, we welcome any questions you have.
All right. Board, do you have any questions?
I've got one question. A while ago, somebody mentioned remove barriers for residents. Can you kind of explain what that means?
Did you speak
I
to
think it
that?
was, yeah.
That's Paul. Paul, are you on the call that you could speak to that?
Are you able to hear me? This is Paula Coggins.
Yes.
Yes, one of the things that we have found is that a lot of people that are interested in entering into any type of program that's for an extended period of time face many barriers, including transportation and daycare primarily. So when public-private partnerships get involved, one of the things that they do is provide transportation vouchers or other means of transportation and some type of voucher system for participants in their programs to pay for daycare. Or they might even need English as a second language or English as a first language type of training that is in addition to the skills training needed for a job. So partnering with public and private organizations is a way to accommodate these aspiring workers that otherwise would not be able to participate in long-term programs, meaning anywhere from 3 to 6 months to 12 months. A lot of people just can't do it because of those barriers.
Thank you.
That's Paul.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Any other questions at this time? Okay, we do need to call for any public comment. Anybody like to make a public comment? Okay, if not, any further discussion from the board? I would just like to thank all of you for choosing Midland as the topic for your study. And I've had the opportunity to read through the entire study, and it has lots of interesting information. Are there anybody that was involved from Midland? Are you all coming from outside with perspectives of Midland?
Most of the students live outside Midland. We even have Paula who just spoke, who was actually, she lived in a different state entirely. I spent some time in West Texas. I'm actually a chief of Texas Department of Safety. It's my day job. So I did spend some time out here in the West Texas area. But to answer your question, I don't think we have anybody from the Midland area.
Okay, well, it's refreshing when you read a report and it emphasizes things that most of us who live here believe, but it's nice to have data from an outside source that supports that, and there's lots of interesting findings in there. So we thank you all for your efforts and your time that you spent on that.
Appreciate that. We just want to say special thanks again to the Midland Development Corporation for allowing us to put our research together and see that. So thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. All right. Next up on the agenda, we have a presentation from the Permian Strategic Partnership on the Highway Economics Report Project. Welcome.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Deborah Richmond and I am Public Services Director of Road Safety for ESP. I can get our slides up real quick. For those that may not be familiar with the PSP, I've got some great information in front of you. Our annual report and our latest economic impact report, Power of the Permian. And it's a great segue from the Bush School presentation and those documents. It's a lot of consistent information there, which to your point, it's great to see it being verified from someone outside the region as well. Skip ahead a couple for time's sake. I think most of you have likely to know with our members, but what I really am excited to talk to y'all about today is our Highway Economics Report. This is a refresh of an exercise we did about 5 years ago with another A&M entity, the Texas A&M Transportation Institute, or TTI, which, if you're not familiar, is a big deal in the transportation world, and they're a really trusted source for transportation research and recommendations. So we're excited to be working with them again. Here's a little bit of how I've structured the conversation today. Please stop me at any point for questions or discussion. I want it to be as much of a back and forth as you guys would like. before I get into this, let me give you a little one-on-one on TxDOT statewide transportation funding. Every August, they approve what is called the UTP or Unified Transportation Program, and it's a rolling 10-year plan. The first 4 years are fiscally constrained, that's called a STIP. And those are the fully funded projects in essence. Everything else kind of rolls, and it might take a few cycles to get a project fully funded, but every year, 1 year rolls up and the new year rolls on. So it's a 10-year rolling basis. Some people call it a budget. It's not technically a budget, but you can kind of wrap your head around it that way. And the funding environment that we're in now with Texas is amazing. Thanks to Prop 1, which was passed in 2014. It takes a piece of severance taxes and puts it in the state highway fund. So basically everything that's happened here is benefiting the whole state. And then Prop 7, which was adopted the following year, takes a piece of vehicle registration taxes. And so TxDOT basically doubled their funding from those two propositions and is decreasingly relying on federal funds when compared to other states around the country who depend a lot on federal funding. So Texas really is the envy of the nation when it comes to transportation funding. However, it's never enough, right? With growing population, more corporate relocations coming to Texas, we're always gonna need more money. And so what I'm talking about today is part of PSP's long-term advocacy strategy with Texas and TxDOT to bring more resources back to the basin. So in 2021, we identified a need to increase investment in the Permian region. We decided that we needed to use some data-backed evidence as part of that. Competition for transportation funding for different important sectors around the state is pretty intense, especially since COVID. This is before COVID really we saw all the impacts, but with funds not going as far for inflation and the highway cost index and everything going up, we have a lot of money, but it's not going as far as it should. So we commissioned the Texas A&M Transportation Institute to measure a few benefits of investments in the Permian region: safety benefits, economic benefits, and reductions in delay. And the results were increased funding levels and sustained priority for TxDOT projects in the Odessa region. Slide. This is historical funding for the TxDOT Odessa district, which is one of 25 districts across the state. So our region is mostly in the TxDOT Odessa district, and you can see that in 2021, there was just over 2.4 billion over the next 10 years. Now we're sitting around 4 billion over the next 2 years. And the feedback we've received from TxDOT is that the information provided by this report really gave them confidence to continue investing. They had data to justify their decisions when there's folks, who are equally powerful and influential all over the state saying, no, Fort Worth needs this, the Gulf Coast needs this, that they felt like they had the air cover they needed to justify a pretty drastic increase in funding for our region. Show you some of the deliverables that were produced last time around. We have this nifty handout that hits all the highlights. And then just going through, part of the deliverable was a slide deck that we would use for doing presentations with other audiences, and we can click through these pretty quickly just to show the types of data that they use and the methodology. So, we were giving a public presentation on this, we could go into pretty good detail and explain the results. And these are the projects that were scored. Essentially, TTI with us selected some projects and put them into a model to score these benefits. You'll notice these are all rural connectivity projects. This year, we have been listening to community stakeholders, and we realized that the PSP can and should do more to advocate for projects at the local levels in Midland and Odessa, Midland County, and Edward County. And so what we're proposing is to partner with you all and your counterparts in Odessa to join with us on the next version of this study. So we can drop your projects and Odessa projects into the model as well. So it'll be an expanded version of what we did 5 years ago. So we'll have the rural section, we'll have the Midland County section, and then the city of Odessa, Edward County section. So folks can take that data, use it as they will. It'll be a great tool to use for TxDOT, the state legislature, Congress to justify investing in priority projects. So again, let's identify the need due to inflation, rising costs, and a rapidly growing statewide economy. Today's transportation funding environment is more competitive than ever. Needs and safety concerns are increasing in the local areas, and so rural and urban budget should be prioritized together. Again, our strategy is to use data-backed evidence and advocacy efforts to raise the profile of our needs and the impact to the rest of our state and nation. We'll be using a lot of information from that economic report you have in front of you, Power of the Permian, that will go into some of the supplementary information provided. And our recommended tactic is to refresh our previous report with the inclusion of projects from Midland and Odessa. The overall goals are to renew the sense of urgency with statewide decision makers to continue investing in the Permian and to create a set of effective advocacy tools that can be made available to stakeholders throughout our region. Next slide. The project objective is to measure economic impacts associated with delays and incidents on roads in the Permian Basin that can be incorporated into business case efforts. These efforts include support of continuing funding advocacy through quantifying basin-wide economic impacts and for prioritizing highway projects, and refine support for articulating the business case for specific project proposals. The draft scope of work with TTI will be to conduct economic analysis of delays and incidents on energy highways from the Permian Basin, document impact details for specific highway segments for prioritization and advocacy. And I will say that this report will not be prioritizing projects. We don't want to get into that and deciding how to rank projects in order of funding. That is, local decisions through the cities and the NPOs can decide which project should be a higher priority than another and communicate that to TxDOT. But we want to have the benefits measured and available as folks at the local levels have those discussions. They will prepare a technical memorandum documenting these impacts with project level backup. They'll prepare presentation materials, and they will complete up to 3 input meetings with PSP and our partners. So hopefully Sarah and her team, her counterparts at ODC, to make sure everyone is good with progress and good with the final product. And then they will complete up to 2 public presentations as requested to do more to have TTI there to present the materials. A neutral entity, we can certainly negotiate that. That won't be a problem. The estimated cost for this project will be around $100,000. And again, we are coming to you asking for some investment from NBC to demonstrate regional alignment and produce a more comprehensive report. We want to show buy-in from you all. And so we're proposing that PSP commit $80,000, and we're requesting that both EDCs contribute $10,000 to bring us to that $100,000. With that, I am happy to pause for any questions. Sarah, it's appropriate for you to add anything, feel free, but we'd love to learn your thoughts and see what follow-up questions can help answer.
All right, from the board, do you have questions this time? No questions at this time. Thank you so much. We will open it up to public comment. Is there anyone that would like to comment publicly? Okay, any further discussion from the board?
Yeah, I have one question. Very nominal amount of money you're asking NBC for, is that more as a show of support
Yes, sir.
as much as anything, or is it?
Yeah, that's a big part of it. We want to show that we're not posing that we're speaking for any of the local communities. When we add additional projects into the model, we want to show that regional alignment and partnership and that we're all working together to communicate needs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next on the agenda is a resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement with the University of Texas of the Permian Basin to advertise and publicize the city of Midland for the purpose of developing new and expanded business enterprises. Sarah, do you want to give a little update?
Certainly, yes, certainly, thank you. Brian Shedd with UTBB is here to answer questions about the project specifically, but this has been an ongoing partnership with UTBB since 2017. Since that time, the 39 Midland businesses have received $3.7 million in prize money to grow their businesses here in Midland. Of those winning businesses, the great majority are successful and still in business and adding to the Midland economy. And just as a reminder to everyone that the fund dispersal is done on a reimbursement basis. So the winning businesses submit their business plans. And after they have been chosen, they have to submit qualifying expenses to UTB in order to be reimbursed. Although there is a check presentation, it is not a literal dispersal of funds at that point. It is done on a reimbursement basis for each business's qualified expenditures. Another reminder that if a business sells or relocates within 5 years of winning, then they have to repay funds that they won under the terms of the agreement. And I'm happy to answer questions. Brian's here. This has been a very successful partnership to help small businesses here in Midland.
Sarah, how many years have we been doing this now?
Since 2017, aside from 2020, there was no challenge in 2020.
And Brian, I know you've covered this before, but do you mind talking about the judge selection process and how that goes so that there's no favoritism, that they're not associated with anyone on this board, and that's not how winners are selected?
Definitely. Yeah, good morning, Howdy. Yeah, the judges, we basically collect nominations, recommendations throughout the year. And so we have, a list of folks that we will reach out to evaluate as to whether or not they can participate, and if they have any conflicts that might preclude them from participating as a judge. One of the checks we do is once we have the businesses admitted into the program, we will ask the judges to review that list to make sure that they do not have any conflicts with any of those businesses. Most of the judges pretty much all the judges that we're recruiting to participate in the program are in the community. So it's very, what we tell them is very likely you're going to probably know the business or maybe know the entrepreneur, but as long as you don't have any existing kind of business partnerships, or you're, kind of otherwise affiliated with somebody that would create a conflict, then that's okay. If there is a conflict, we can kind of work out a conflict management plan that will have that conflict minimized.
Okay. And I know the administrative costs in this year's agreement have gone up slightly. Do you mind addressing that?
Yes, yeah, there were a few changes to the budget. We tried to keep the number kind of similar to what has been submitted last year. I think the kind of big changes for this year, one is we've added a new personnel line to incorporate some participation from the College of Business faculty. So we are creating some stipend lines for them to come in as consultants and work with the small businesses in the program, but then to also help deliver some of the seminar content throughout the program. The other change for this year that was kind of an increase from last year is the addition of the indirect costs. This is something institutional that has requested inclusion in the budget. Basically covers costs for programs and activities that can't really be covered under a single project. Overhead costs essentially that are split across multiple different program and awards. So we are using the off-campus rate. Essentially, we're just using kind of facilities at the seed building to conduct this, but we're not using anything like laboratory space or anything like that. That would necessitate the on-campus rate, which is much higher. So I think this just really covers things like, the fact that when we do procurement, we've got folks from the purchasing department that are involved as well that are not specifically called out in any other section of the budget. One thing we did adjust a bit to help kind of balance those changes is the kind of award ceremony has been scaled down a little bit, so we plan on doing more kind of a check presentation for this year, which provided some substantial cost savings, for that event.
And I know we haven't done that in the past, Brian, but if we wanted to do the presentation like we did last year and provided corporate sponsors for that, that would be something that y'all entertain.
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah, that'll cover that cost.
Okay. All right. Does anybody have questions for Brian?
One question. Would you mind going over kind of what some of the metrics are for choosing winners? Is it mostly based on objective measures of the business, or are there any judges' discretion about, like, chance of growth or anything like that?
Yes, it's largely at the judge's discretion. So the businesses that are admitted into the program have two different deliverables that they have to provide, which kind of narrows down the field. So we cap the number of businesses in the program at 50. And so the first deliverable is kind of an executive summary. The judges receive those from all of the participating businesses. They score them. About half of those businesses then move on to the second round. Those businesses are asked to submit a full business plan, 30 pages with financials, that's developed in collaboration with the Small Business Development Center. And then those are also scored. And from those, we have 8 that proceed into the final round, which is a live presentation to the judges. And so from those final 8, the judges have full discretion as to how the funds are awarded. There's a total of $500,000 in prize money. No one business can receive more than $150,000. And so that kind of gets split up. The judges can award less than what a business will ask for, just based on whether they feel like it could be done with less, or maybe there's an aspect of the business plan that they wanted to prioritize over maybe another aspect. So there's a lot of discretion from the judges. And so, our team and the board doesn't really have any say so at all in who gets that prize money.
Yeah. And Brian, would you clarify, are these existing businesses that are expansion? Are these some startup businesses? Is it a mixture of both?
It's a mixture, but I will say that we've kind of seen a trend skewing more towards established businesses participating in the program. Those also seem to be the ones that fare better in the judge's review. So, I mean, they are looking at things like, what's the potential for growth? I mean, obviously there's some real key components there, which is that the agreement sets out, there's goals there for expansion in terms of the revenue that they generate to increase that tax base, the number of employees that they can add, and then also bringing in outside sales. So the goal being that they can see maybe a 50% increase in the sales from outside the city limits to their business. So those kinds of things are what's really driving the evaluation. Yeah.
And Sarah, this may be a question you can answer, but I know sometimes the question we get is, well, we're not in the city limits, but we're in Midland County. Why can't we participate? Is that one of y'all like to address why that is?
Yeah, we get that question every year. I mean, we cover it at the orientation sessions in detail. But then we do check the Secretary of State's website to verify where the business is actually registered. So for the newer companies, like we do have some startups that will participate. If they are incorporated at somebody's house, but the house is within the city limits, that's okay to participate. They don't necessarily have to have a dedicated facility for the business yet. Other businesses, if they are outside of the home already, they do have to have a business address, a headquarters that's listed within the city limits.
Okay. Any questions?
Yes, you said over the history of the challenge, it's been around 3.7 million. And it's been a good number of years. Is there some numbers that would show us like the return on these investments? Like what are these companies producing? Taxable jobs? What's that look like?
We've not really done any kind of formal reporting on that. I know, I will say CC's our program coordinator and helps run the program. We actually discussed that this year. We're coming up on 10 years, so this would be the 9th year that we've offered the challenge program. I think next year would be a great opportunity to maybe include that in the proposal. to conduct an economic impact report. Anecdotally, I think you can look at the previous winters, and like Sarah pointed out, many of them are still in business. Most of them are thriving and growing. And so I think you can look at that and assume that yes, there is probably a lot of economic impact that's taking place there. But we haven't done anything to really quantify that.
I've got one question for you. Do you know for the 9 years, how many employees have been hired in total?
Not offhand. No, we do get some reports from the businesses that have received the award money. And they do have a report on that every year. So we have those numbers, they're just not compiled into any kind of a report or anything.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Brian.
Okay, thank you.
This time we would call for public comment. Looks like there's none. So any further discussion from the board?
I guess just moving forward, I would like to see more of those numbers brought before us as we make these decisions.
Okay. All right, with that, I'll call for a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll motion for approval.
Bayhill, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Donnelly. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? All right, thank you. Next up, a resolution authorizing the execution of a second amendment to that certain lease agreement between the Midland Development Corporation and Lorraine at Texas Office Tower Limited, DBA Centennial Tower Limited, regarding real property located at 200 North Lorraine, Midland, Texas, 79701. Sarah, you want to give a briefing on that?
Certainly. So this resolution provides a 5-year extension to MPC's existing office lease at our current offices. I and the board did review the asking rate per square foot for comparable spaces around downtown Midland, and the rate that is being proposed is in the bottom 50% of those going rates. So this will provide MPC to continue leasing at its current location. The starting rate for the next year, beginning October 1st, is $21.50 per square foot per year.
And to note, that's less than we're currently paying at $22 per square foot.
Yes, sir, it is 50 cents per square foot per year reduction for the first year.
Okay. All right, call for public comment. There being none, discussion from the board. If not, I'd call for a motion to approve the resolution.
I'll move.
Thanks, Mr. West. Second. There we go. Mr. Boldrick, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. Presentation on the June 2026 Economic Development Activity Report from the Midland Development Corporation Executive Director.
I'll wait for Paige to pull up the slides on sales tax receipts. In the meantime, the financial statements for June are in your packet. The primary expenditures made in June for prior year and current year economic development incentives are all for work commissioned with Kimley Horn for MPC's ongoing plan development for the intersection at County Road 1250 and State Highway 191, as well as the expansion of State Highway 158. So you see those expenditures on the income statement totaling a little bit more than $500,000 for this previous month for work that has been finished. On the income side, sales tax tracked a little bit above last year's receipts year over year. As a reminder, the July numbers are based on sales that were made in June. At this point, MPC is 25% above budget for income. So if this continues to the end of the fiscal year, the total will be above $18 million. I'm happy to answer any questions the board has on the financial statements.
I've got a question. I just noticed this. 49% jump in June. That's a big jump. What? Anything particular?
I do not receive the data on what sectors provide the increase. I can ask that Christie Midland of the city, if there are any specific data on sectors, but I pulled the numbers from the comptroller side and I don't have the data. There may have been a reconciliation from a previous month that accounts for the difference, or there may have been significant business expenditures that.
Great. Any questions of Sarah?
I will, if that's all on the financials, I'll move forward on the activity report. We can, the next slide, please. I do want to highlight, excuse me, 3 upcoming events. The first one being tomorrow, Founders Blend is returning after the summer recess. A monthly small business gathering with coffee and sharing from 2 small businesses. Encourage you all to drop in if you haven't previously. This month it will be at Second Story Co-working downtown. It's a great place for coffee and communication with the small business community with our regional partners. Next slide. The next event is the Governor's Small Business Summit that is happening on Thursday at the CHAP Center on Midland College campus. This is done in partnership with the City of Midland and Midland College, as well as multiple community partners. It's from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. I will be hosting a panel with some funders on small businesses' access to capital. There will be a keynote speaker from BAM Consulting, so it'll be a really good opportunity for the small business community to come together. The Office of the Governor regularly hosts these around the state in many different communities, so we're really lucky that the City of Midland chose to put Midland forward this year, and we're helping them out with this event. So please come. Registration is free. If any of you want to come, or I'm sorry, registration is $20. Correcting. But we welcome any of you to come. Next slide. Lastly, Fly into Fall will be August 29th. This is the annual event at Midland Air Park, bringing the community and showing them about general aviation. Midland Development Corporation has had a table there for as long as this event has been going on. The attendance keeps going up year over year, so we will be there all day. And we'd love to see all of you there pop in and out. It's a really great event and one of my favorites because there are so many kids who love to tell everyone about MDC.
All right.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Do we have any other reports? Okay. All right. At this point, we will move into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code, section 551.101. The Board of Directors will hold an executive session, which is closed to the public, to discuss the following matters as permitted under the following Texas Government Code sections. Section 551.072, deliberation regarding real property, discuss the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Section 551.087, deliberation regarding economic development negotiations. Discuss business prospects that the Midland Development Corporation seeks to have, locate, stay, or expand in or near the city of Midland, Texas, and discuss possible incentives and discuss contract compliance on the part of businesses. Thank you.